Marines don't have that problem. You know, first of all, I have to introduce two very important people in my life here. It was an incredible campaign, and I had another fellow warrior by my side for, they asked you how many years you've been married, guys. The right answer is to say, not long enough. Don't even count. My wife Jan is here with me tonight. Thank you very much, Jan. And then another very special person here tonight, my dear mother, Virginia. In 30 days, she'll be 90 years old. Now, my mother has been after me my entire life with more books and publications and articles. I got a call the other night about 11 o'clock in the morning. She had just read something from the New American or some magazine, and she says, you know, things are getting tough, John, but I love it when it gets tough, because when things get tough, you just get tougher. I thought, oh my gosh, Mom. And I said, Mom, the country's going down. We're about to hit bottom. And she says, John, the great thing about hitting bottom is you got something to push off from. So I don't know, with a mom like that, you just got to keep charging. Thank you, Mom. You know, I have to start with another Marine story here. And it's a story about two privates that were in San Diego. They were just promoted to PFC. So another excuse to celebrate and head to a bar. And so they were toasting each other all night long, and then they stumbled out. There was big fog there. They didn't know where they were. In the distance, they saw some guy come in their direction. Now, they did not know this, but the guy coming in the direction was a very decorated naval officer. You know, medals and all, flashing admiral. And one of the Marines yells out, hey, my main man, dude, hey, dude, where are we? Well, of course, this senior admiral comes walking right in front of these two Marines and looks them right in the face and says, do you know who I am? Well, at that time, one Marine turns to his buddy and says, whew, we're in a heap of trouble now. We don't know where we are, and he doesn't know who he is. Now, kind of about where we are in America today, folks. I'm in absolute insanity. I'm tied into a podcast with Ravi Zacharias, and some of you may know who he is, a wonderful Christian apologist. And this is an older podcast, but he was commenting, he just got back from California. And he says, how in the state of California, on the very same ballot, you can have some legislation for legalizing marijuana and outlawing McDonald's Happy Meals. and someone overheard him and says, well, what they really need to do is put the marijuana in the Happy Meals and call it Very Happy Meals. And then, 2 weeks ago, this legislation that went to the governor's desk in California about this trying to determine your gender identity. Most of us don't have much of a problem, at least every 24 hours, figuring that out, you know? And I said, oh, there's no way. I mean, talk about absolute insanity. And of course, this signs off on it. I mean, this went through the legislature. Aren't you grateful that we don't have a legislature like that, Tim? Congratulations, man. Holy smokes. But, you know, you look at this thing and you think, for a moment, boy, you know, if you were an 11th grade boy, time to join the girls' volleyball team and get one of those lockers, you know? But then you really come down and you think, this is K through 12. What about the first grader, the second grader? These kids that are being exposed to this. A complete loss of culture everywhere we look, a complete loss of values. They're growing up this way. And you think, where is this going to go? You know, the chaos that reigns everywhere. What's going to turn us around? Hey, being all politically motivated and charged up and everything else for the next election and override the governor's veto and all these very important things we need to do. But folks, I think we have a much deeper problem, and you know it. and I know it. Again, on another Ravi Zacharias podcast, listened to the next day, and he wasn't there. They had some guest lecture, and I was about to turn it off. But this British guy caught my attention. And I wrote down what he said, thought about it, rewrote it, because it pertains exactly to the situation we are today. So I want to read this here because I've been working and drafting this, but the words are very important. It's moral law protects freedom. The same thing that Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer was talking about. Freedom is a moral concept. It only exists in a moral framework. If you remove the moral framework, you don't have an increase in the amount of freedom in a society, you have a loss of it. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want to. That is not freedom. That is anarchy. And anarchy in a society is a loss of freedom. When moral standards collapse, virtue vanishes, and anarchy advances until tyranny reigns. When moral standards collapse, virtue vanishes, and anarchy advances until tyranny regains control. And that is why on the day after the Declaration of Independence was signed, one of the signers, John Witherspoon, stated, and I quote, "Civil liberty cannot be long preserved without virtue. A republic must either preserve its virtue or lose its liberty." The problems are much bigger. I had a wonderful discussion with Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, getting an update on the different issues. And we were discussing that I believe there are three horrible situations going on in this country right now. He brought me up to date on the problems in the military and overseas and the tremendous loss of our intelligence overseas. They're doing the intelligence here, but they're forgetting about over there. And how vulnerable we are, and the weakened military and our troops and multiple deployments and the suicides and the atheist chaplains and everything. What a tragedy we see on that area. I'm going to an economic conference in Europe here in a couple weeks, and I went last year. Brilliant people from around the world. But the situation economically is an absolute disaster. Not just our money and our currency, but throughout the entire world. We have a military disaster, we have an economic disaster, and the third issue we have is a cultural and value disaster. The root, though, my friends, and my passion here tonight is to speak to you all in terms of the real answer that is going to turn us around. We all are given special talents and ability, and all of you have contributed in so many ways, and I've seen friends from around the state and people encouraging me tonight, people with tremendous talent and passion. But folks, we've got to get back down to what is the motto on our coins. It is in God we trust.